Dear Sangha, please smile because we are online. Many of our friends follow this Dharma Talk. A few hundred of us have been in the winter retreat, 90 days. And we are halfway on the retreat. And the theme of our retreat is do we understand the Buddha, his teaching and his practice? Because not only the people who are outside misunderstand the Buddha, but also the people inside of the tradition, they misunderstand the Buddha. And with the modern way of researches, we can discover a lot of misunderstanding when we of the Buddha's teaching, when we read the sutra and we study the Abhidharma. And many of our friends follow the Dharma Talks online and practice with us, although they are not here in Plum Village. In the past few weeks, we have been speaking about home, how to go home, how to be home. Many of us are searching for a home where we find comfortable, where we find at ease. I remember in 2007, I went back to Vietnam and organized ceremonies of requiem to pray for the dead people, victims of the war in Vietnam. Many millions of people died during the war. Vietnamese, Americans, and others. So we practice sitting together, walking together, praying together, regenerate the energy of mindfulness and compassion, understanding, to heal ourselves and help heal the dead people in ourselves. It's very hot at that time. And every time we finish a retreat, a ceremony of prayer, there was rain. And the practice is to heal a nation that has gone through a very long war. When I was in Pháp Vân Temple, Dhamma Cloud Temple in Ho Chi Minh City, I was interviewed by a journalist coming from Thay magazine about the ceremonies of prayers the practice of healing. And after the interview, she asked me, "What else do you want to tell our readers?" And I said, "That girl, go home and take care of yourself." She was very shocked. To take care here means to heal. Go home and heal yourself. Because only at home that you can heal yourself. But I was thinking in the light of the teaching of the Buddha, home is in the here and the now. Home is in yourself. And you can go home just by breathing in mindfully. Or making a mindful step. One breath or one step done mindfully can bring you home to yourself. Because according to the teaching and the practice, home is in the here and the now. You go back to the here and the now. Before the Buddha passed away, he visited his many sanghas around the city of Vaishali. He knew that he would not live very long after, so he went to visit practicing sanghas around the city of Vaishali, just north of the Ganges River. And he said, "Dear friends, there is an island within ourselves, and that is our home. Just take refuge in that island within yourself, the island of mindfulness. The Dharma, don't take refuge in anyone else. Take refuge in the island of self, in the island of the Dharma." So I was thinking of that home, the island within, where we find safe, when we find at ease, where you find you have a chance to heal yourself. I did not know whether she understood. So I was, after the interview, I was preparing to leave for the site of the retreat. And I asked her, "Where did you go now?" And she said, "I'm going home to take care of myself." I know that what I said had been very striking for her. She felt the need to go home and heal herself. I hope she understood that home is right there within herself, and she doesn't have to buy an air ticket to fly back to America to find home. Because many of us who are in our own country, in our own family, do not find our home. So it is not a trip by air or by train can bring you home. Our true home is within. In Plum Village, we have that song, breathing in, I go home, I go back to the island within myself. And in Plum Village, when we walk, we do not talk, we do not think. Because the talking and the thinking bring us away from the here and the now. we are with our in-breath, out-breath, and we are with our steps. And we want to go home with every breath and every step. We walk in such a way that we can nourish us and heal us with every step. And if you stay with us for a week, you'll do the same thing. Just enjoying your in-breath, out-breath, and your steps without thinking, without talking. And sitting meditation is also to be home. And it is the time, also the time to heal. Because if we know how to sit, and then the healing takes place during the sitting. If we know how to walk, the healing takes place in the time of walking. Every step is healing. Every breath is healing. And we have big brothers, big sisters in the Dharma. We can ask them how to do, so that our time in Plum Village would be beneficial for us. And we can bring that practice home. The Buddha said that Nirvana is available in the here and the now. Nirvana means cooling down. The extinction of the fire within. The fire of anger, the fire of fear, the fire of afflictions. And also the extinction of wrong perceptions, wrong views. We have wrong perceptions. We look, we listen, we hear, we feel, and we have wrong perceptions. Especially when we think, we have many wrong perceptions. And our wrong perceptions are at the base of our suffering. Fear, anger, separation, despair are born from our wrong perceptions. So Nirvana is the removal of these wrong perceptions, and also the removal of the afflictions that are born from wrong views. The third noble truth sometimes is described as Nirvana. Nirvana is the cooling down, the peace, the joy. When you have been able to remove your wrong views, when you have been able to extinguish the fire of anger, fear, and so on. And the Buddha also said that Nirvana is available in the here and the now. We do not need to die in order to touch Nirvana. In fact, we need our body, our feelings, our perceptions in order to touch Nirvana. We can very well touch Nirvana with our body. And that can be possible even today. You don't need to practice 5 years or 10 years in order to begin touching Nirvana. Nirvana is a word that has come from the daily talk of the people in the countryside. In the morning, they want to cook breakfast before going to work. And there's no more fire. The the ash is cold. You don't risk to burn your fingers. That is nirvana, cooling. It does not burn. So nirvana is a state of no fever. There is no fever. There is no heat. The heat, the fever, the flames are born from wrong perceptions and from afflictions like fear, anger, and despair. And if we follow the path recommended by the Buddha, we can very well extinguish the fire in our daily life. And that path is called the Noble Path, Magga, a Noble Eightfold Path. So Magga, the fourth noble truth, is the path leading to Nirvana. And that is why we should learn, we should look in order to see the path. To see the path is very important. When you begin to see the path, you begin to see Nirvana. Because there is a strong, deep connection between the path and Nirvana. In fact, you can see Nirvana just by looking at the path. Last week we have discussed about the connection between the third and the fourth noble truth. The third is the cessation of suffering, the presence of happiness, the presence of nirvana. And the fourth is the path of practice that help us experiencing nirvana, experiencing cessation of suffering, experiencing happiness. It is like a sheet of paper. We can distinguish the left side and the right side. Although they have different names, left and right side, but they are connected together. You cannot remove the left from the right, and you cannot remove the right from the left. That is what we call interbeing, co-being. And we have tried to look and see the nature of interbeing between the goal, the aim, nirvana, and the path leading to nirvana. And we have found out that the path is nirvana itself. So when you have seen the path and you begin to practice according to the path, you begin to experience nirvana right away. And as you continue, nirvana becomes more and more real that you can experience. Suppose there is a splinter in your finger, and you don't feel comfortable with the splinter in your finger, and you try to take it out. And after having taken out the splinter, you feel fine, you feel free, you feel well-being. So this is true with our afflictions. Our anger, our fear is kind of splinter. And if we know how to remove it and then experience well-being, freedom, and that is nirvana. So when you take out the splinter from the finger, the state of well-being, freedom, that is nirvana. Nirvana is not something abstract. It's the feeling of freedom, the feeling of ease, the feeling of well-being. And when you extract, when you transform your afflictions like anger and fear, every time you extract, you transform one, you experience Nirvana. And wrong perceptions also. When you get understanding, when you practice meditation and look deeply into the nature of things, you get the insight. And that insight take away wrong perceptions, and you feel freedom. You feel freedom, you feel ease, you feel happiness. So we need this body, the six sense organs. We need our mind in order to experience Nirvana. And the Buddha said several times that it is possible for a person to experience perfect Nirvana while she is alive with this body and with this mind. And the path, any of you who have received the 5 mindfulness trainings in this new version, you know that the 5 mindfulness trainings represent the path. And we can very well practice the 5 trainings. We can very well live according to the 5 trainings and experience Nirvana in our daily life. Because that is the path. And if you get in touch with the path, you get in touch with Nirvana. And we know that right view is one of the 8 elements of the path. And the practice is to get the right view. In our daily life, we should train ourselves to listen, to look, to think in such a way that we can remove wrong views and get the right view. Right view has the power to liberate. The entire Buddhist ethic is based on right view. And one day, a monk whose name is Kaccayana asked the Buddha, "Dear teacher, you often speak about right view. What is right view exactly?" And the Buddha said, right view is a kind of insight that transcends the notion of being and non-being. It's so simple. In order to get that right view, you have to observe, you have to meditate. Thinking is not enough. Thinking doesn't help us to have right view. We know that this is winter time. Winter is there. So spring is not there. And we think that winter is and spring is not. That is our way of thinking. But according to the Buddha, to say that spring is not there is not correct. All elements of spring are there, ready to come together and help spring to manifest. In the month of April, we see many kinds of tiny creatures appear, manifest. Many kinds of flowers and plants manifest. Where Where do they come from? They do not come from nothing. If we look into the nature of spring, we think that spring does not come from the realm of non-being. Before the month of March and April, we do not see spring. And in the month of April, we begin to see spring. But looking deeply, we know that spring has not come from the realm of non-being into the realm of being. Spring was hidden somewhere, waiting for the time to manifest. So to qualify spring as non-being in winter time is the wrong way. Because from nothing, you can never become something. So let us look deeply into the nature of spring. And we know that you cannot use the term being or non-being to describe spring. When you do not see spring, you say that being and spring is not there. But that's not correct. The idea of being and non-being cannot be ascribed to spring. The same thing is true with a cloud. When a cloud disappears in the sky, you cannot say that the cloud is no longer there. The cloud is there, but in another form, because a cloud cannot die. A cloud cannot come from the realm of being into the realm of non-being. A cloud can only become the rain or the snow or the hail or the fog or the ice. A cloud can never die, can never become nothing. So when we do not see the cloud, we cannot describe the cloud as non-existing, non-being. And this is the problem of deep looking. And looking deeply, we can remove the notion of being and non-being. And at the same time, we remove the notion of birth and death. Because these two pairs of notions, they are linked to each other. We think of to be born means from the realm of non-being, we pass into the realm of being. So the notion of birth is based on the notion of being and non-being. The notion of death is the same, because we think that to die means from being you go to non-being. And as we look at the cloud, we see that it is impossible for a cloud to die. So you know that you have to remove the notion of death. And if you remove the notion of death, the notion of being and non-being are removed at the same time. That is right view. That is the foundation of the path. We are still in the winter retreat. It means that we still follow our schedule. So the first element of the path is right view. And according to the Buddha, in one of his Dharma Talk, right view is a kind of insight that transcends the notion of birth, or the notion of being and non-being. To be or not to be, it's no longer the question. And we know that according to the teaching, right view comes from the practice of right concentration. Right concentration and right mindfulness. And this is the core of Buddhist meditation. Mindfulness is a kind of energy you generate in your daily life. And when you are mindful, you are always present in the here and the now. Your mind and your body are together, and you are able to live each moment of your daily life deeply. That's the art of mindful living. Because your mind and your body are together. And you are in touch with what is happening in the present moment. You are truly alive. And if you live like that, you cultivate your concentration. And with mindfulness and concentration, you get the right view. And right view can come at any time. Suppose you breathe in mindfully, and you bring your mind home to your body. And when mind and body together, concentrated, suddenly you have an insight that you are alive. Many people walk around, but do not remember that they are alive. When you spend 2 hours with your computer, you are completely absorbed in it, and you forget that you have a body. That Mother Earth is there. All the wonders of life are there. You think that what is more important is to solve the problem with your computer. And your mind is not with your body. And that is why in Plum Village, in our computers, there is a bell of mindfulness. Every 15 minutes, you hear the bell, and you go home. You go home to your body, and you smile. You breathe 3 times deeply before you resume your work. Otherwise, you lose everything. So, if we practice mindfulness, we can live more deeply every moment of our daily life. We get in touch with the wonders of life that are healing and nourishing. And when we live like that, we are concentrated on the present moment. And the insight can come. Breathing in, and if we focus our attention on our in-breath, we suddenly become aware that we are alive. And to be alive is a wonderful thing. Because someone who is already dead does not breathe in anymore. So just breathe in, and you have the insight that you are alive. So mindfulness can bring insight right away in just a few seconds. Right? Mindfulness has the power to produce insight and concentration. And that is a kind of insight. There are many kinds of insight, many moments of insight. When you walk mindfully, you might be aware of your body. You might be aware that Mother Earth is not only beneath, but inside of you. That is a kind of insight. And insight continues to come like that, like a stream. And insight has the power to liberate. The first thing to be liberated is our forgetfulness. Forgetfulness. Forgetfulness is the opposite of mindfulness. We are alive, but we do not know that we are alive. We have a body, and we do not know that we have a body. And many people live in forgetfulness until they die. And at the moment of dying, they suddenly wake up and they found out that they have not truly lived their life. There are nurses who accompany the dying people, and they have reported to us that many of the people who are dying regret that they have not lived their life. They work too hard. They worry too much. They did not have time to live their daily life. They spend their life in forgetfulness. They think that having fame or power or money is more important. They regret that they have not lived their life. They have spent their time being in forgetfulness. So, according to the practice, to the teaching of practice, everything you do in your daily life should be mindful, should be done mindfully. And if you do them mindfully, like walking or driving or cooking, and then you are truly alive. You don't have to set aside some time to practice mindfulness. You practice mindfulness while you brush your teeth, or take a shower, or do the dishes. And you are fully alive in these moments. And this is an art of living. And we know that mindfulness is the same nature with insight. Smriti is prajna itself. So, awakening, enlightenment is possible every minute, every moment, if you live your life in mindfulness. And this is a way of life. And we need some training in order to live our life like that. And if we live in a place where there are people who practice like this, this is very easy, because everyone is trying to do the same thing, and everyone reminds you that you should live your life mindfully and deeply, otherwise you regret later. So mindfulness is one energy, concentration is another energy, and these two energies always bring the third kind of energy, which is right view. And right view has the power to liberate. First of all, it liberates you from forgetfulness, so that you can live your life properly and deeply. And then it can help liberate you from anger, fear, discrimination, and so on. And the practice of living mindfully helps you to look more deeply at everything as they present themselves in the present moment. And you discover the nature of no birth, no death, no being, and no non-being. So the 5 mindfulness trainings that we have received are very concrete way to live the path of of the Noble Path. When you have right view, you can practice right thinking. Right thinking is the kind of thinking that goes along with understanding and compassion. And that kind of thought that you produce have the power to heal and to transform. If you produce hate and despair in your thinking, that kind of thinking is destructive. It can create violence. Wrong thinking, the thinking characterized by discrimination and anger and fear, may lead a person to kill himself or herself. And right thinking is not possible without right view. And that is why right thinking always go in the direction of understanding and compassion. As soon as you produce a thought in the direction of right thinking, that thought begins to heal you and heal the world and bring happiness. And if you have removed the notion of being and non-being, the notion of birth and death, the right thinking will be more powerful. It is free from all kind of discrimination. Because right view is also the insight of interbeing. It transcends the notion of being and non-being. By interbeing. Interbeing is not being. The insight of interbeing helps you to remove the notion of being. That does not mean that you fall into the notion of non-being. No. It helps you to transcend also the notion of non-being. Because to be, you cannot be by yourself alone. You have to interbe with everything at the same time. We have seen one simple example. The left and the right. They interact. Without the left, the right cannot be. You cannot remove the right from the left. And that is interbeing. The same thing is true with the above and the below. You cannot remove the below from the above. We interact. If the communists and the anti-communists, they kill each other because they don't see their nature of interbeing. When they kill the other person, they kill themselves. If the Palestinians and the Israelis are afraid of each other because they don't see their nature of interbeing, the safety and the well-being of the other side is their own safety and security. If they help the other side to have more safety and security, and then on their side they have more safety and security. So that is the nature of interbeing. And that is why the insight of interbeing remove the notion of being and non-being and remove all kind of separation and discrimination. And that is why right thinking can heal the world, can heal your body, heal your mind, and heal the world. And right thinking is already action. is only karma, nghiệp. Good karma, right thinking. As soon as you produce a thought of compassion, of non-discrimination, you heal yourself and you heal the world. And then with right view, you produce right speech. You practice right speech. What you say, what you write in your email, is full of understanding and compassion. There's no discrimination. There's no anger. There's no fear. And while writing a letter like that, when saying something kind, compassionate like that, you heal yourself. You feel wonderful in your body and your mind. And you have healed the other person. If you are a journalist, and if you have right view, you have the insight of inner being, the article that you write will be full of compassion and understanding. And while writing, you get the healing. And when the people read your article, they get the healing. If you are a school teacher, the same thing is true. And right thinking and right speech cannot be possible without right view. And right view is the outcome of right mindfulness and right concentration. That is the path. And then with right view, we can practice right action. What we do with our body that can protect, that can help, that can save, that can heal is right action. Even the act of eating, we can eat in such a way that can reduce the suffering of living beings. We can drink and eat in such a way that reduce the suffering of living beings. And that is why we need the 5 contemplations. We eat in such a way that we can preserve our planet. We can protect other species on Earth. And with compassion, with understanding, this is possible, always possible. And many people have found out also that when you go vegetarian, vegan, you help reduce a lot of the damage caused to the earth, and it will help more than if you don't drive a car. When you drive a car, you pollute. Even if you stop driving a car, you only take the train or and the bus, you can reduce the pollution. But to go vegetarian, you have more. You have more. Because the food industry, as it is now, well, is very destructive. So action, karma, is seen as thinking, speaking, and doing things. And this kind of wholesome karma will produce well-being, happiness. And this is a nirvana. And with the right view, we will be able to select a kind of livelihood that can express our understanding and compassion. A kind of career, a kind of livelihood that can help protect the environment, that can help you to exercise your compassion, your understanding. Even this job does not bring as much money as the other job, but you are much happier because you are on the right path. Your life is full of understanding and compassion, and you touch well-being, you touch nirvana. You consume less, but you are happier. And then the other element of the path is right diligence. Right diligence means that you continue with the practice of right thinking, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. You continue to practice mindfulness, concentration, in order to continue to get the insight. And one of the 8 elements help produce the other 7 elements. About 100 years ago, many Western scholars from Europe, they began to study Buddhism. They learn Pali, Sanskrit, Tibetan, Chinese. And during the first 40 years of Indian studies, the majority of them came to the conclusion that the aim of Buddhism is to have an eternal death. Buddhism aims at an eternal death because Nirvana is the extinction of being. When I read the findings, the works, I recognize that they are very intelligent people. And yes, when they look into the scriptures, they found out that Buddhism, the aim of Buddhism is eternal death. You want to die and you don't want to reborn again, because reincarnation is painful. So nirvana to them is eternal death. And then I asked myself, why these intelligent people, they can think like that? Because when they come to a Buddhist countries like Burma, like Thailand, they see that the people are full of life, they love being alive. They are not pessimistic, they don't want to die, they want to live. And yet, how the spiritual tradition, Buddhism, like that, and yet people are like that. Then I found out that because the thinking is too much characterized by dualism, the dualistic thinking. We think in terms of being and non-being, birth and death. And this is not that. Right is not left, above is not below. We think in the opposite direction of interbeing. The Buddhist thinking is that everything inter-is with everything else. You cannot take the right from the left from the right, the above from the below, and etc. And in Buddhism, you learn that suffering and happiness, they inter-are. You cannot take suffering out of happiness. You cannot take happiness out of suffering. Happiness is made of non-happiness elements, including suffering. It's like when you look at the lotus flower and look deeply, you see that the lotus flower is made only of non-lotus elements, including the mud. Without the mud, you cannot have a lotus flower. So the suffering inside of us and in the world is a kind of mud. And if you know how to make good use of the mud, you can produce the lotus of happiness. So that is the thinking characterized by interbeing. But if you think that happiness is one thing and suffering is another thing, you can take them out of each other. That is dualistic thinking. And as far as you continue to think dualistically like that, you cannot understand Buddhism, even if you are a very talented scholar. And to me, Christianity has been transformed by that way of thinking also. We have understood Christianity very much in the spirit of dualism. In Buddhism, there is a distinction between the living being and the Buddha, which is an enlightened being. But we are always reminded that you cannot take the Buddha out of you, and you cannot take you out of the Buddha. It's like the lotus flower. You cannot take the mud out of the lotus, because the mud is one necessary element for the lotus to be. So when you look into the Buddha, you see non-Buddha elements, including suffering. You can see the suffering in the Buddha transform into compassion. Today we have learned how to embrace our suffering. And we know that understanding suffering will bring about compassion. And compassion can heal, can create happiness. So that is a kind of making good use of the mud to cultivate lotus flowers. So before you bow to a Buddha, you have to meditate in order not to see the Buddha as a god, completely outside of you. And when I was 16, ordained as a novice, my teacher told me that before you bow to the Buddha, you have to recite a verse. You say, "Dear Buddha, the one who bows, which is me, and the one who is bowed to, it is you. We are both empty in our nature. We don't have a separate self. It means I am in you and you are in me. If you are only you and I only me, there is no communication possible." And that is why before you bow to the Buddha, you have to see the interbeing nature of the Buddha and your nature of interbeing. You have to see Buddha in you and you in the Buddha, and that makes communication deep and possible. If you bow to Jesus and you pray to Him, and if you think that you and Jesus, you are a sinful person and Jesus is God, you cannot see you in Jesus and you cannot see Jesus in you, you cannot really have true communication with Jesus. And that is why there are mystics who can transcend that kind of discrimination and understand Christianity deeper and have better relationship with Jesus Christ. But the situation of Buddhist studies now in Europe is much better. That is why a global ethic needed for our time in order not to create separation, discrimination, should be based on right view. And according to the Buddha, right view is first of all the insight of interbeing, and you remove the notion of birth and death, being and non-being. Suppose we meditate a little bit about birth and death. According to the dualistic thinking, now is only life and death will be later on. But when a biologist looks into the body, he can see that birth and death are happening at the same time, always. In this very moment, many millions of cells are dying. Death is happening right here, right now, in your body. And that makes it possible for other cells to be born. So the left and the right lean on each other in order to be. Death and birth, they lean on each other in order to be possible. In this very moment, many cells are dying. And we are so busy to organize funeral ceremonies for them. And at the same time, many new cells are born, and we also do not have the time to sing happy birthday to these cells. It means birth and death, they are like left and right. They happen, they lean on each other to be. We don't have to wait until 50 years later in order to experience death. We are dying now. We are dying in every moment. And we are born in every moment, because birth and death, they are always together, like left and right. And that is why the insight of interbeing can remove all kinds of wrong perceptions and fear, even the fear of dying. The cloud is not fearful because she knows that she cannot die. She can only become snow or rain. Why should we be afraid of dying? Because we have not seen the nature of interbeing. We have not been able to remove the notion of being and non-being, birth and death. And Nirvana is that. Nirvana is the removal of all these notions. And together with all these notions, the fear, the anger, the discrimination vanish. That is Nirvana, available in the here and the now. And when you look at the Eightfold Noble Path, you cannot imagine that this practice will lead to eternal death. It's a very clear, very obvious that every of the elements can only bring joy and freedom and happiness. And how can we come to a conclusion that the path of Buddhism only leads to eternal death? And that is because the dualistic thinking, way of thinking. And these scholars who who have come to the conclusion that the ultimate aim of Buddhism is eternal death, they have overlooked many passages in the sutras where the Buddha said, when you are able to remove these afflictions and these wrong perceptions, you experience nirvana in the here and the now, right in this life. You don't have to die. The first time I spoke in a church in America, it was in 1966, and in a suburb of Philadelphia, the community of black people. And I remember that during that talk, I have said this: you don't have to die in order to go to the kingdom of God. In fact, you have to be very alive. And in order to be alive, it's easy. You breathe in mindfully. And when you breathe in mindfully, you bring your mind home to your body. And when mind and body are together, you are established in the here and the now. You are truly present. You are truly alive. And you make a step, you go into the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is here and now. Over the years, we have established a relationship between Buddhists and Christians. I have written books and organized interfaith retreats where Christians participated. The book Living Buddha, Living Christ, Going Home, Buddha and Jesus as brothers, have been used as instruments in order to establish link and to promote more mutual understanding. And now there are many friends who practice both Christianity and Buddhism, including clergymen. And there is a kind of tendency called double belonging. You belong to both traditions, and you don't see any conflict. And that talk, even in Philadelphia, was the first talk where I present my insight about the kingdom of God. And what I said is very simple, very clear. You don't have to die in order to go to the kingdom. In fact, you have to be very alive. You have to be fully present in the here and the now. And if you can do that, you make a step and you go to the kingdom. And now, half a century has passed. And the other day I wrote that the most beautiful place of heaven is on earth. The kingdom is right here and right now. The kingdom doesn't have to come. It is already here. So our friends who come to Plum Village enjoy walking meditation. And if they have enough mindfulness and concentration, they enjoy the kingdom of God with every step. They enjoy Nirvana at every step. We know that there is no way to Nirvana. Nirvana is the way, the path. And when you receive the 5 mindfulness trainings, you know that these 5 trainings are based on the insight of right view, free from the notion of birth and death, being and non-being, free from all kind of discrimination. And happiness is possible with that kind of insight. Compassion and peace and liberation is possible with that kind of insight. So what kind of resolution I am to make before the coming of the new year? Maybe I will write down something like this. I am determined. I am determined not to waste my life, not to waste my time, not I dare to live the life that I want to live. And I want that every step I make on this planet bring joy, happiness to me and to the people. I want every step I make on this planet is a step I made in the kingdom of God, in the touching the Nirvana, because it's my conviction. There's the path and Nirvana, the path and the kingdom are the same. You cannot remove the kingdom from the path. You cannot remove Nirvana from the path. You cannot remove the path from the kingdom or Nirvana. So the other day I woke up at midnight, I wrote down, there is no way to Nirvana. Nirvana is the way. So every step helps you to touch Nirvana, liberation from wrong perceptions, liberation from the anger and fear born from these wrong perceptions. And like that, I can enjoy deeply every moment that is giving me to life. Maybe I will write down that as the resolution for the new year. Let us do walking meditation together and experience the kingdom of God, the Nirvana. We don't have to look for Nirvana. It is already there. We need a little bit of awakening. That is all. To abandon the old style of living and to enter the path and touch the kingdom of God, Nirvana, right away in the here and the now. Happy New Year for everyone.